Well, I reckon what you's wanting to know is who I'm a-voting for. I reckon the reason I'm in here is to vote for Ron Paul. But I reckon what you's a-wanting to know is how come me to vote for Ron Paul. So I guess I'll start at the front and tell you. I lived out back of my mother and father's place most of my life in a little old shed that the government built for me. They didn't too much want me being self-reliant. Mostly I just sat around out there in the shed looking at the ground. I decided to run for Congress out there. I figured I could tax people pretty good. I reckon I won. In D.C., I raised taxes out there most of the time. Spent too much money out there. I mostly just sat around out there in Washington, tinkered around with a earmark or two. Went on a government junket off and on. But the Democrats out there made sport of it. Spent quite a bit. Kept spending too much. So mostly, I just sat around out there in Congress. Ron Paul worked at the Congress, down at the House of Representatives, always followed the Constitution. Congress was filled with very cruel fellers. They didn't treat the citizens very well, didn't pay them too much of a mind, didn't pay the Constitution too much of a mind. Just barely paid it lip service, I reckon. But I reckon we still got some rights. Democrats used to come out, one or the other of them, usually Harry Reid. He'd feed me BS pretty regular. I know he was pretty sly, 'cause he'd give me earmarks 3 or 4 times a session. Old man Reid, he had a girl named Nancy Pelosi. Nancy was really more cruel than Harry Reid was. She used to make quite a bit of sport of the citizens when I was down there at the Congress. Used to take advantage of the taxpayers there in the Congress. They used to say that Nancy Pelosi was a crazy woman. They said that quite a bit from time to time. Well, I reckon you want me to get on with it and tell you what happened, so I guess I will. I was sitting out there on the floor of Congress one evening, not doing much of nothing, just staring at the wall, waiting on Fox News to come on and give me my speaking points. I hear the commotion going on up there in the Senate, so I run up there quick to see what was going on. I looked in the chamber there and I seen a citizen laying on the floor without any money. I seen Harry Reid with his hand in the citizen's pocket. He was having his way with him. Well, I just seen red. I picked up a tax code that was sitting on the floor. Some folks call it Title 26 in U.S. Code. I call it a tax code. It's kind of long, 16,000 pages. Kind of like 50 Bibles stacked together, except a whole lot harder to understand. Political favors on one page, loopholes on the other. That's what the Treasury boys used to confiscate private property and whatnot. Well, I went in there in the house and talked to Ron Paul about it. We passed a bill to cut spending. I reckon that didn't quite satisfy me. So we decided to go further and reduce taxes. We plumb near cut off the income tax. Nancy Pelosi, she jumped up from there and started hollering, "What'd you lower taxes for? What'd you lower taxes for?" Well, come to find out, I don't reckon Nancy minded much what Harry was doing to us. I reckon that made me better than what Harry made me. So I went to talking to Ron Paul. Some folks call him Ronald. I call him Ron Paul. upside the head with my idea. Run, Paul. Some folks has asked me, if you had it to do over again, would you do it the same way? I reckon I would. Anyhow, they seem fit to elect me in here, and here I've been for a great long while. I've learned to read some. It took me 4 years to read the Constitution. I can understand a great deal of it. It wasn't what I expected in some places. I've legislated here for a great long while. Now they say they're re-electing me. They're going to have me defend liberty, I reckon. Anyhow, I reckon that's all you was needing to know. You want to hear about more details? I reckon I can tell them to you. I don't know if that's enough for your newspaper or not.
Will you ever tax anybody again, Carl?
I don't reckon I got no reason to tax nobody.